Good evening, everyone, and welcome as we learn Torah Hashem, Be'ezras Hashem Yisbarach. We always begin with appreciation to TorahAnytime.com for their worldwide network of Torah, and to Kol HaLashon for its global network. We thank Torah Communications Network for its amazing Talmidim, our Zoomers, our subscribers, and those of you that are joining us here as we are, with thanks to Hashem, back at our flagship station, the Agudas Yisrael Beis Zev of Fairways Lakewood. And we thank Hashem for a beautiful summer. We thank Hashem that we have a beautiful home and Beis Medrash to come back to here in lovely Lakewood. And it's good to be back. We have three sponsors for tonight. We're sponsored, and I'll say them in the order that they came in. We're sponsored by Michael Spinnard, and forgive me if I'm not pronouncing the name right, who's sponsoring the shir in loving memory of Rabbi Yaakov ben Osher. Neshama should have an aliyah, should have a lichtig Gan Eden, and be a melz yosher for his family, for all of us, and all of Klal Yisrael. We're sponsored by my dear Talmud Nachman Chapler, who should have a refuah shalema, and we learn le'ilui nishmas Sora bas Yisrael. Her neshama should have a lichtig Gan Eden, and she should be a melitzi yeshara for her family, for all of us, and all of Klal Yisrael. And we're sponsored by my dear Talmud Beirich Goldwasser, Leili Nishmas, his grandmother, Fegaleya Bas Yaakov Zev, should have a lichtig Gan Eden, be a melitzi yeshara for the family, for all of us, and all of Klal Yisrael. From week to week, we do not have a sponsor for next week. If anybody wants to sponsor, 718-916-3100. Again, you could text me at 718-916-3100. Schus of hundreds, if not thousands of people listening to the share worldwide. Or you could email at rmmwsi@aol.com. There is a world-famous Orach Chaim HaKadosh, Rabbi Dr. Twersky quotes this idea. He says it's almost a unanimous idea by the early commentators, but this is known as the Orach Chaim's Pshat. We know that the parsha starts off with the very not contemporary law of the beautiful maiden, the Yafas Toyer. In the olden days, when they went to battle, the women worried that they would be slaughtered, made themselves very beautiful, and threw themselves at the mercy of the capturing army. And because of the temptation, it says Dibra Torah Keneged Lashon Hara, that the Torah gave some allowance here, we won't go into the details, to sleep with this foreign Yafas Toyar, because otherwise people would succumb to the Aveira. And we know, this is the big Yesod, that Ein HaKadosh Baruch Hu ba betrunya im briyasav. Hashem never asks a person for more than they can handle. And this is a rare example that we wouldn't be able to handle such a temptation, and therefore the Torah made a special exception by the Yafas Toyer in battle. This, by the way, the idea that Hashem never asked from us more than is within our toolbox is the idea behind the national declaration of Na'aseh v'Nishma. We said we will do and we will listen. Now you might ask, that does not sound to be very responsible. You should never say you'll do before knowing what you're getting yourself into. Responsible person doesn't say yes until they hear what it is. Maybe they won't be able to do it. And the answer is, with Hashem, you don't have to do that. Because if Hashem says to do it, then we know we can handle it. That's the idea of Na'aseh v'Nishma. I could say I will do even before I hear it. Because if Hashem gives it to me, then it's within my toolbox. When I have the very sad rabbinical duty, lo yaleinu, of visiting a family that loses a child, and they're overwhelmed with grief, and they don't know how they could go on. So if I feel they could handle that, I tell them this idea, that Hashem doesn't give anybody more than they can handle. And if Hashem gave them such an unbelievable hardship, lo yaleinu, it means Hashem thinks that they're very special. Rabbi Yochanan used to tell people, Dein garma da'asira bir. This is the bone of my 10th child who I buried. Rabbi Yochanan was a Gadol Hador. So Rabbi Yochanan is telling them, don't be overwhelmed with guilt. I'm the Gadol Hador and I still lost 10 people. I still lost 10 children. And therefore, but that's not what the shir is about. Just a good piece of information. We know that the Torah was written for all generations. And since the pasuk starts off in the lashon of Yochid, Tzaitzay lamelchama al oivecha. Oivecha is singular. If it meant a national battle, it should say Tzaitzay lamelchama al oivechem. And unasana Hashem alikecha biyedchem. But it says it phrases it, it forms it in the singular. Therefore, the Orach Chaim HaKadosh, this is a very famous Orach Chaim HaKadosh, says that this pasuk is defining one of the reasons we came into the world. One of our central pursuits of life. And the Orach Chaim says Tzaitzay means Tzaitzay when the baby comes out of the womb into the world. That's Tzaitzay. Tzaitzay means when the neshama comes down from heaven. It leaves the Kisei HaKavod, and the baby leaves the portals of the womb. You should know the reason why we come out to the world is la milchama al oivecha, to do battle against your enemy. Who's the enemy? Oyev ha'amiti shel adam. The true enemy of man is the Yetzer Hara. Now it's very important. Somebody says, I never had an enemy in my life. A person says that, but it's not true. We all have an enemy. This is very important to know. We all have an enemy. And that enemy is the Yetzer Hara, the evil inclination. Now what does that mean, he's an enemy? So that's a Beferish Shemaim Chazal. Yitzray shel Adam miskaber alav b'chol yom. The Yetzer prevails upon a person every day, or mevakesh la misay, and wants to kill him. We have an enemy that is dead set on causing us to leave this world before our time. Now, this is radical terminology. It's radical terminology. But the Orach Chaim HaKadosh is saying, you should know that this is the purpose of life, to do battle against this enemy. Now, this is the Tafkid Achayim. Now, you'll say, B'chol Yom? I can understand that sometimes I get rough around the edges, and I want to get angry, maybe on an Erev Shabbos, but every day? Every day? So that's a Beferish Gemara in Brachas. This is such Yesaitis, this is the Aleph Beis of Yiddishkeit. Gemara says in the beginning, in the first parak of Masechtas Brachas, there's a Gemara that a person has to study. La'olam yargiz adam yetzer toiv al yetzer hara. A person should always get the good inclination. Angry, yargiz means angry. Roigiz. Beroges raching tiska. When you get angry, Hashem, remember mercy. That's what we say. Beroges raching. La'olam yirgaz adam yetzer toiv al yetzer hara. We should get our good inclination good and angry against the evil inclination. Now, whenever the Gemara says the word la'olam, it's instructive. La'olam means this is a daily, hourly occurrence. This is so important. This is a daily, hourly occurrence of life. Because Yitzrei shel Adam misgaber olav b'chol yain. Every day it prevails upon a person. I want to tell you that if you don't think this, then you're already lost. If you're not aware that there's a daily battle, then you're already lost. So you'll say, Rabbi Weiss, what are you talking about, a daily battle? An hourly battle. So the mature Jew knows that from the moment they get up, they're being pursued by the Yetzer Hara. Person gets out of bed and he doesn't make a Moida Ani. He's not putting Hashem first. It's very important to start the day and put Hashem first, and to thank Hashem that I got another day of life. A lot of people don't do that because the Yetzer Hara gets them not to put Hashem first. So you'll say, no, Rabbi Weiss, I say Moida Ani, and I mean it. Yes? And do you smile at your wife and say good morning? The Yetzer Hara says, get up and start your day. Forget about her. Forget about him. You're married? Greet your wife in the morning. It says, "Every mekabel kol adam b'sever panim yafes." Any person with a smile, but a wife where it says a commitment in the ksuva, Ana eflach va'oiker, I will work and I will cherish her. Get up in the morning, you don't say good morning. You're not cherishing her. You go to the tap. You're supposed to wash your hands 3 times alternately to the wrist. Here he washes his hands, but he doesn't do it to the wrist. You know why? Because the Yetzer Hara is at work. Yetzer Hara doesn't want us to be involved in the Tukei mitzvahs. Person goes to the bathroom, you'll excuse me, and doesn't clean himself properly. He's in a rush. You don't clean yourself properly, then you're saying Hashem's names, you're putting on tefillin with tzaya b'fiyat tabas, with tzaya by the mouth of the rectum. That's already a big aveira. But the Yetzer Hara is at work. A person comes out of the bathroom, makes the Ashiyotza without a moment's thought about the kidneys, about the liver. I know somebody, just know it now. I know somebody who they diagnosed that they keep on filling up with fluid because there's something awry in the liver. So they have a very sophisticated procedure called TIPS, where they bypass the liver so that they shouldn't fill up with liquid and there shouldn't be congestive heart failure. But when you bypass the liver cleans the toxins. So if you bypass the liver, the person now has problems with encephalitis. And they make no sense. They're agitated because of the toxins. There's so much going on. Roifei kol basar, Hashem heals the flesh, and mafli la'asais, and he does wondrously. Person doesn't say Ashiyatsu with Kavana. It's because of the Yetzer Hara. Now, we're just starting the day. Person comes to Shemoneh Esrei, takes the 3 steps forward into the palace of the king, and then he starts thinking that he's going to enjoy a latte for breakfast. And he's saying, maybe I'm going to have a cinnamon bun with the latte, or maybe a cheese Danish. He's doing that while he's hitting his chest in Slach Lano Avinu Kichatanu, Chalanu Maken Kifashanu. He's thinking about the latte and the cinnamon Danish. Who do you think is doing that? That's the Yetzer Hara. So a person is La'olam Yargiz Adam Yetzer Tov. It has to be a constant battle. Now, again, if you don't realize the battle, you've already lost. Well, now I'm going to tell you something very profound. Listen very carefully to this. Not only is there a daily battle, but the daily battle is one which, if we fairly estimate our chances, we would say we have no chance. This is a startling comment, but it's very important. This is the dynamics of life. Listen carefully to what I'm saying. It says in the Chazal, Yitzray shel Adam miskaber alav umevakesh la'amisai. The Yetzer prevails on us, wants to kill us. V'imein HaKadosh Baruch Hu Izray, if Hashem doesn't help us, eina yachalei, we can't do it. That means, here's a person. He realizes that he has roving eyes. He likes to look at females. He likes when it's hot outside and they're not dressed so much. He likes to look at their legs. And he says, I can't do it. I'm doing this all the time. I can't do it. I can't refrain from this. It's not in my toolbox. Truth of the matter is, he's right. But he's not reckoning with a very important part of the equation. And that is that if he decides to try, Hashem will give him a burst of siyata d'shmaya. That's what it says. Yitzay shel adam misgaber olav b'chol yom u'mavakesh la'misay. V'im ein HaKadosh Baruch Hu oizrei, and if Hashem doesn't help him, eino yochaloi. He won't be able to do it. But Hashem will help him. And with that newfound help, he'll be able to do it. Here's a person who fights with his wife. And he says, look, I can't do this. He's right. He can't. But if he tries, then Hashem will give him special siyata d'shmai. And that's pshat in the pasuk, ki tzaitzay lamolchama alivecha. If you engage in battle, unisana Hashem alikecha biyadecha, Hashem will deliver the enemy in your hand. I know many people, they said they can't get up for minyan. Can't do it. They can't. They have to be at work at 9. This minyan thing they can't do. They have to daven quickly at home before they go. And they really feel they can't do it. They don't have the strength. But if they try, all of a sudden they're able to do it. What happened? What happened is they got the burst of siyata d'shmai. And therefore a person shouldn't say, I can't do this. But it's very important to know that we have an enemy in our midst. You know, you might think enemy is a strong word. I know somebody that he was texting in the car and he almost killed the child because he took his eye off the road and he hit the child, but Baruch Hashem, the child was okay. He was texting in the car because the Yetzer Hara got him to text in the car. Yetzer Hara said, don't worry about safety. Yetzer Hara wanted to kill him. What about the person that smokes and gets throat cancer? Yetzer Hara wants to kill him. Yetzer Hara wants to kill people. Kill them physically and kill them spiritually. We have to know this. Now, in this discussion, I should add that Sar Shalom Ebels, the Frierdiker Belzer Rebbe, we can't even understand what a great man he was. Sar Shalom Ebels said that everyone was put down into this world for specific tikkunim, for specific corrections. He said if you want to identify why you were put down in this world, you should try to see what the Yetzer Hara is really, really working on you. And then you know what specific tikkunim you have to work on. He says that's pshat in the Mishnah in Pirkei Avos, Ezel Gibar HaKovesh Es Yitzray. Who is mighty? Someone who conquers his Yetzer. It doesn't say Ezel Gibar HaKovesh Es HaYetzer. It says Es Yitzray, his Yetzer. Different people have different Yetzer Haras. We see this. As a rabbi, I see this clearly. There's some people that to talk in shul is something they would never think of. I should talk in shul? I'm here to daven. It would be stupid to talk in shul. Yet other people have such a Yetzer Hara to talk in shul. There are people, they have a Yetzer Hara to cheat in business. Business is business. They have a Yetzer Hara to cheat in business. They're drawn to a shady deal. I know people that manufacture shabby material. They make it look good, and it's really not good. So they're able to charge much more because it looks good. It's really not good. When that's such gnevus das, it's the world was destroyed during the Mabel, because of corruption. There are people that have a Yetzirah for this. Rabbi Frand presents this idea a little bit differently. He said that today most of us are Gilgulim. We came back again to correct something. He says, how do you know what you came back to correct? He says you could identify that by seeing which Averis you're drawn to. The Averis that you're drawn to, that's part of your life mission to correct those things. Now you could understand that this is really, really, it's not a coincidence that we always learn Tzaitzay and Elam. Because we're asking Hashem for another year of life. And here we're saying that the Or Chaim is telling us, Tzaitzay, when we came out into this world, our purpose is la milchama, to engage in this battle. So if we want to ask Hashem for a new lease in life, so we have to say, I'm going to redouble my efforts in this battle. And therefore, how appropriate it is during Elul to make a cheshbon hanefesh, to go through the day and to see where the battlefields are. Everybody has different battlefields. Everybody has different battlefields. There are people that at work, they're dealing with goyim, and they're tempted to speak like their colleagues. Their colleagues use nivel peh. So they succumb to the sewer mentality. But the sin of nivel peh is a very serious sin. So that's one of their battlefields. Everybody has different battlefields. There's a person who is plagued with jealousy about one of their siblings. One of their siblings has a beautiful home and late model cars. Here he's driving a battered Chevy and living in a shabby rental apartment. And he's very, very jealous of his siblings. Now we know that the 10th commandment is, Lo yisachmai, don't covet what is yours. We know that Rekavat Sama's Kina, the very rat of the bones, is jealousy. So that's his Yetzirah. We have to know and identify. But if you don't know, the first thing is what the Or Chaim Kodesh is telling us. Ki Tzaitzay, when we came out of this world, into this world, it's la milchama. It's to engage in this battle. La'olam yargiz adam yetzer toiv al yetzer hara. Now the great Chassidish Sefer, the Igra de Kala, very, very, very wondrous Sefer. The Igra de Kala says that Ki Tzaitzay has a different meaning. Ki Tzaitzay, when a person leaves the Beis HaMedrash, then he has to know immediately is activated La Milchama Alivecha, the war against your enemy. In the confines of the Beis HaMedrash, a person is safe. Because Barasi Yetzirah, Barasi Torah Tavlin La. Hashem created the Yetzirah. He created Ki Tzaitzay. As soon as you leave the safety net of the Beis HaMedrash, immediately La Milchama Alivecha. Now this Igra de Kala emphasizes how important it is to have a life of Torah. You have a life of Torah, first of all, it brings longevity. As the pasuk says, Oirech Yomim B'Yamina. A long life in its right hand. B'Yamina means L'mayminim ba. Those that learn Torah Lishma, to be Mekayim the Mitzvah D'Oraisa V'Dibar Tabam. Eitz Chayim Ilam HaChazikim ba. It's a tree of life to those that hold it. Besides that, Torah gives a person a fulfilling life. We have a lot of people today that live unfulfilled lives. In America, there's a multi-trillion dollar sector of spending on recreation and travel, because people are looking to be fulfilled. They're looking to be fulfilled. Torah fulfills us. That's the meaning of Ki Chayim Heim L'Motzeihem. It is life to those that find it. Anybody that saw the Gedolei Yisrael, Rav Elyashiv learning over a Gemara, Rav Moshe learning over a Gemara, Reb Chaim Kanievsky, like you saw their faces suffused with meaning and inner happiness, with sweetness. The Torah is Mesukim Midvash V'Neifes Sumud. So first of all, the Torah gives longevity. It gives meaning for life. It also is the dew of resurrection. That's a pasuk. Ki tal oros talecha. The dew of light is your dew. Or is Torah. Ain't or ela Torah. The resurrection will happen through the schus of the Torah. As it says, V'akitzosa, when you awaken, it will be your talk. When you awaken, you won't say, what's the Mets doing these days? When you awaken, you won't say, what's the Dow Jones? When you awaken, it'll be with Torah. So again, it promotes longevity, it gives meaning to our life, and it is the elixir of the resurrection. But also it is the number one protection against the Yetzer Hara. Barasi Yetzer Hara, Barasi Torah Tavlana. I created the Yetzer Hara. I created, Ramila used to say, what is Hashem bragging? Barasi Yetzer Hara, it's my Yetzer Hara. Would somebody say it's my tarantula? What's the Rebbeinu Shalom saying? Barasi Yetzer Hara, it's my Yetzer Hara. Ramila said, Hashem is saying, don't listen to other people. They'll tell you how to protect yourself from the Yetzer Hara. He says, look, Barasi, Hashem said, I created it. So I'm telling you how to deal with the Yetzer Hara. You want protection against the Yetzer Hara? Barasi Yetzer Hara, Barasi Torah Tavlana. So for example, here's a person, he's struggling with Shalom Bayis. That's a minefield of Yetzer Hara. Minefield. Yetzer Hara of Kas, Yetzer Hara of Atzlus, of laziness, a Yetzer Hara of self-centeredness. There's all kinds of Yetzer Haras. It says, B'ritzayis Hashem darchei ish, gam oivav yashlemitay. It's a puzzle. B'ritzayis Hashem darchei ish, when Hashem likes the way of man, gam oivav, his enemy, that's a wife, who by nature is not going to be the same as a man. By nature will contend with him. But b'Tzaitzay Hashem darech ha'ish, when Hashem likes the way of man, gam oivav yashlim ito, even his enemy will make peace with him. In a world like today, which is so fraught with temptation, the Torah life is the safe life. Before slichas, believe it or not, we're really barreling down to slichas. Before we know it, we're going to be up Matzah Shabbos at Tzaitzay, belting out the Pizmain. Lishmaya l'rina v'yela tvila. We're going to be davening to Hashem. We're going to be saying Yud Gimel Midas. How do we get Hashem to listen to our requests? Is there a way to have pull? You know, there's now many families that had to get their children into yeshivas. They need a pull. Is there a way to have pull with the Rabbeinu Shalom? So in Akdamis that we say on Shavuos, Akdamis milin v'shaya shuzah. Right? In Akdamis we say, there's a very important stanza. People don't understand Akdamis. It's written in Aramaic. It's poetic. It's cryptic. There's a stanza. It's my favorite stanza in Akdamis. Savi v'chamid v'ragig de'yilan b'la'usa. Desired, cherished, and pined for by Hashem is one who wearies himself in the Torah. Tzlo son b'chein mekabel. Your tefillas will be accepted, v'hanya ba'usa, and your petitions will be helpful. Person that learns Torah, and he learns it lishma, and he learns it to follow it, then the prayers of such a person is accepted. Now there's another thing, and I always say this in Elul, there's no time like the presence to tell you this. We're going to be asking Hashem for a lot of things. One of the main things we're going to ask Hashem is Zachreinu l'chayim, melech chafetz b'chayim, v'kosveinu v'sefer ha'chayim, l'manecha elikim chayim. Write us in the book of life. Everybody asks that. Some people don't get it. Rahman al-Tzlan. Over the year, people get sick, they die. How do we make our request that Hashem should listen? So there's a secret. I always bring a proof to this secret from the words of the Heilige Admira. Many Rebbes said this. In your Haggadah, in small print, right before Manishtana, it says, Kan haben shoyel. Here the son asks, what do you think? What do you think? Here we eat matzah? I mean, are we such greeners that it has to say before Manishtana Kan haben shoyel? So you'll say, Rabbi Wise, it's for the newbies. It's for those that are not FFB. I told you, a Russian immigrant from behind the Iron Curtain once told me the first time he saw a McDonald's, he thought it was a Yiddish store and the McDonald's sign was the two luchos. That's what he thought. But the two red things were the luchas. So it says Kanaboyan Ben Shail for the people that are not FFB, the people that are, the greeners. But the Gedolei Admairim say, no. What it means is Kana Ben Shail. If you want a son, this is the place to ask for a son. When you want a son, everybody wants a son. Why should Hashem give it to you? Because Hashem, I want to have somebody to ask Manishtana. Oh, Hashem said, that's a very good request. You're giving me a reason. That's what the Gedolei Admairim, the Belzer Rebbe, the other great Rebbes, Kana Ben Shail, here's where to ask for a son. So you have to know how to ask. We're all asking Kasveinu L'chaim. Now, but if a person learns Torah, Hashem said, Bereishis bara, B'shvil Torah shenikreishis. I created the whole world for Torah. Vayer vayivoke yom hashishi. It says hashishi. It doesn't say hakamishi. Hashishi. That everything is contingent on hashishi, the 6th day of Sivan. Shavuos, Kabbalah Satira. It's Chamish Chumshei Torah. Everything is dependent. If not, I'll turn the world back to Toyu B'Voyu, to wonder and void. We're asking for Chaim. For what? Oh, you're going to learn? They're starting the Daf Yomi Zvachim right before Rosh Hashanah. You know what? I'm going to start learning Masechtas Zvachim. I'm going to get into the Daf Yomi, learn a daf a day. Oh, I want you on my planet. I want you on my planet. You know what? I'm going to start being Ma'avah Sedra. You know Ma'avah Sedra? I have billions of people on the planet, but a person that's Ma'avah Sedra, you get to the front of the line when I give out life. And that's what we say. Kasveinu b'sefer hachayim, l'mancha elikim chayim. For your sake. What do you mean for your sake? Hashem needs me. But kutche bericha v'araisa chadu. Hashem and Torah is one. If I'm going to learn Torah, that's your sake. Ooh, that's the way to ask for life. That's different. The truth of the matter is that really this battle should take up the whole share. I should tell you that the Gemara in Masechtas Brachas says, "La'ilam yargiz adam yetzer tov al yetzer ra." You should engage in battle. The Gemara says, "Nitzcha," if you win the war and you don't look, rotiv. V'imlav, if not, yikra kriyashma. You should say Shema Yisrael. You should reiterate that you're Mekabel O Malchus Shemayim, that you have a boss. Then the Gemara says, Nitzchu, if you won, Mutav. Imlav, Yilma Torah, learn Torah. Nitzchu, if that helps you, good, Mutav. Imlav, Yiska Lo Yom HaMisa. The last ditch attempt against the Yetzer Hara is to remember death. When we're going to have to give a final accounting, and we're going to have to pay in Gehenna for what we did. So you'll say, well, if Yizka Lo Yom HaMisa is the best Eitzah, let's do that first. You can't use Yom HaMisa first. Because if people think about death and they're not schooled, they'll have an opposite consequence. I better drink and be merry because anyway I'm going to die. You have to be first schooled with Kabbalah Salt B'Al Shemayim and Torah, then Misa will help. Also, we don't use Yizka Lo Yom HaMisa all the time because that would give us a morbid existence. So that's only a last-ditch attempt. we need to go a little further. This week's parsha talks about the institution of marriage. Ki yikach ish isha. The man takes a woman. The Aleinu L'Shabeach says that a woman could say to herself, why should I prepare so long on a meal? I'm making chicken, I'm stewing it, and I'm preparing 2 side dishes. I'm in the kitchen, it's hot, 2 hours. I'm working 2 hours, and then I'm going to work to serve it, and then I'm going to work to clean up, and then clean the pots and everything. It could be a 3-hour job. They eat it in 15 minutes and it's gone. I'm doing this every day. What kind of existence is that? So the Aleinu L'Shabeach says we have to know that that's why it's so important to show true thanks and appreciation. Because that's the payment for all that work. That's the point that he makes. I want to make a different point. The reason that a woman works so hard on preparing meals is because it's a way to her husband's heart. So you'll say, Rabbi Weiss, that sounds very crass. That's what she has to do to get to her husband's heart. But it's a pasuk. It's a pasuk for one of the greatest Jews in the history of mankind. Vayehav Yitzchak es Esav ki tzayid b'fiv. Yitzchak loved Esav. Rashi says ki tzayid b'fiv because Esav hunted for his mouth and prepared him a delicious filet mignon. A delicious crepes. A delicious venison. Yitzchak, the ruchniest giant, Pachad Yitzchak, he should be influenced to love Esav the sinner because Esav cooked for him? Isn't that embarrassing? But the Torah is teaching us the mechanics of cooking. Cooking causes a person to overlook other flaws and to love. What a talent for a woman. What a talent. I heard Rabbi Ruhaim Feinstein say, instead of teaching girls Ramban and the Ramban's pshat on the Diglei Midbar, teach them how to cook. Cooking generates love. Now listen carefully to this. A woman doesn't understand. You know, I was, last night I was on vacation. We were on Muncie. I took my wife out to eat to a restaurant. And we saw 2 people, and they were getting this huge tomahawk steak. The chef came out with this huge steak. It looked enough to serve 10 people. And he was cutting it up for them, and he had special salting it to them in front of them. And they're taking pictures of it. And my wife looked at it, and to her it looked like almost carnivorous. It looked almost barbaric. A woman is not excited with food. It says, "Ein simcha la'adam ela b'basar v'yayin." A man has simcha with meat and wine. A woman doesn't turn her on. A woman, it says, "Ein simcha ela b'begadim meguhatzim," with fine clothing, with tachshitin, with jewelries, but not with food. And since it doesn't excite her, she doesn't realize. She has to realize that with food, she is planting ava. And so that's why she'll spend time cooking. Because I never realized this. I never realized this. But you know, a man is mushba through his kreisai. Kreisai is the stomach. A man is influenced by his stomach. I never noticed that the letters of kreisai, chaf, reish, samach, vav, are the same letters as sukkar. Samach, vav, chaf, reish, which is sugar. A man is influenced with sweets. A man is influenced with good food. And it's a wonderful accomplishment for a woman. Now, it's the same thing is true. It's so interesting. It's so interesting that the same thing is true that a woman is influenced by 2 yards of taffeta and 1 yard of velvet. Those 2 yards of taffeta and 1 yard of velvet could be $800, $900. And the man looks at it and says, you know, I make $900 after working a whole week. I'm going to spend it on 2 yards of taffeta and 1 yard of velvet? It's more than that. A shetel could be $6,000 or more. Today a shetel is like a shtreimel. Shetel could be $9,000. Man says $9,000? $9,000, that could be 9 weeks of work. It's insane. Yeah, but he's generating ava. He's planting ava. And he's getting olam haba forever. A person has to know this. You have to look at it with the Torah lens. I want to share with you about the institution of marriage, something from Reb Chaim Kanievsky. I can't believe how we're getting chopped by the clock over here. I can't believe it. Even before I share with you, since it's about what we mentioned in food, I want to share with you, we all know we started a new Masechta in Huryas tonight. Huryas. It reminds me of the great founder of Daf HaYomi, Rav Meir Shapiro, Zecher Tzadik Livracha, Zchusi Yagan Aleinu. The next word was said by Rav Meir Shapiro. There's an unusual Mishnah in Masechtas Gittin. The Mishnah says in Masechtas Gittin, Reb Shimon Aimer lo yigarish adam es ishtay, elim kein matzah ervas davar. Person shouldn't divorce his wife unless she acted immorally, with immorality. That he could divorce her even if she burns his food. So Rameir Shapiro said, burn his food, if she burns the steak, if she burns the cake, it's a reason for divorce? What does it mean? So Rameir Shapiro says, when a woman burns the food, if she's a good wife, she takes the burnt part for herself and gives the good part to her husband. If she's an average wife, she splits it. She takes some of the burnt and some of the good for herself, and some of the burnt and some of the good for her husband. If she's a bad wife, she gives her husband all the burnt part and takes the good part for herself. Says Reb Meir Shapiro, that's a reason for divorce. If she gives him all the burnt part and takes everything good for herself, that's a reason for divorce. But I was thinking to myself, why did Beis Hillel structure it in the arena of food? And again, I think it's because food is a special weapon in the hands of a wise wife to generate Ava. And here this woman is taking that gift and using it against her husband. That's a reason for divorce. Now I want to share with you, it's really unfair to do this in the last 4 minutes of the share, but I'm going to do it because we're on the topic of marriage. Before I do, I want to again remind you that we just started a new Masechta. Please join us at the share is this week at 8:10 and next week at 8 at zoomdaf.com, meeting code RMMW, all in capitals. If you want to sponsor next week's share on Kisava, we don't have a sponsor yet. Please text me to 718-916-3100. 718-916-3100. Reb Chaim Kanievsky quotes from the Tana Debei Eliyahu. This is the teaching of Eliyahu Navi. It asks, in the Tana Debei Eliyahu, Yoel was a heroine. Yoel was the one who we were being terrorized by Sisera. Yoel went into his tent and got him to go to sleep, and then took the peg of the tent, put it through his brain, and killed him, and saved Klal Yisrael. Yoel was a woman, a very unlikely hero. Sisera was a great warrior. So Eliyahu Hanavi asked, what schus did Yoel have that she was zeicha to save Klal Yisrael? So it says in the Talmud Yisrael, "Mipnei she'isha kesheira ha'isa va'isa ritzayin ba'ala." She was a worthy woman and did the will of her husband. Mikan omru ein loch isha kesheira b'nashim. There is no more worthy woman amongst women. Ela isha she'isa ritzayin ba'ala. So Reb Chaim Kanievsky says, how did Eliyahu Hanavi know that it was because she did the will of her husband? So Reb Chaim Kanievsky says an interesting thing. Reb Chaim Kanievsky said that if you look through Shoftim when it discusses Yoel, it doesn't tell us historically anything about Yoel, except it says 3 times, Yoel Eishes Chever Akeni, the wife of Chever Akeni. Says Reb Chaim, we know from that her virtue was that she did the will of her husband. Today, there are many women that feel that to amount to something, they have to have something special. They have to have a career, they have to have a specialty. Ein la ksheira b'nashim ela isha oiser etzayin bala. At the end of the day, the Torah says, why was a woman created? Loi toiv yoisa adam levada esa loi ezer connected. The Rambam codifies that a woman, here's the lashon of the Rambam says that a woman is maleches b'taivas libay, follows the desire of her husband's heart, u'merachekes kol mashi yisane, and she distances herself from anything that he hates. But you have to know, before the Rambam says this, the Rambam says that a husband should be mechabed his wife more than himself and love her like himself. If he lives that way, that's the only time he could expect that a woman should want to do his will. You have to know, therefore, that it's a mutual relationship. But if a woman wants to succeed after 120, a man, tchilas dinai shel adam ein ela b'divrei Torah. What will a woman be asked? A woman will be asked, you were put on this world to be an ezer. Were you a helper to your husband? When he had a problem, did he go to you, or did he say, the last person I'm going to tell is her, she'll use it against me? Were you an ezer? Did you know your husband's favorite snack? Did you know when he was down how to cheer him up? Now it's true that the Mefarshim say another pshat in Isha Kisheira Eiser Etzayin Bala, and that is a worthy woman, Eiser Etzayin Bala, helps to form the will of her husband.